I'm not at liberty to give my name for this. And if someone ever found out that I gave away this information, I would be in some deep stuff with parts of the government that most people don't even know about. But I felt that this story was worth sharing. The people deserve to know what the government has been doing, and this happened so long ago. It is certainly not a threat to them anymore if word of this gets out. All this occurred in 1982. I was a lowly seaman aboard the submarine Adams. We had gone on several different missions before, some of them secretive. But this next one was quite different, and we were told that it was a top secret mission handed down to us directly from the Pentagon. We would not be told what the mission was until we got out to sea. We left port from San Francisco and headed out into the Pacific Ocean. We stayed pretty close to the surface for most of the trip. I passed the time with some of my buddies, just fooling around. Life on board of a submarine can get pretty boring sometimes. The officer of our division brought us all together and explained the mission. All the other officers were explaining the mission to their divisions as well. Apparently, NASA had been monitoring the sky when they noticed something. An object was hurtling towards the Earth at an incredible speed. NASA originally thought that it was some kind of meteor, until the object began to erratically change directions on its descent into Earth. The officials immediately knew that this was some type of spacecraft and informed the president. President Reagan informed the Pentagon, and they sat down to discuss what to do when the object crashed into the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It was apparently quite large. It was our job to locate the exact position of where it crashed. Then, once we found it, we would radio back to an aircraft carrier that had been following us. The aircraft carrier would, with the help of a few other boats, as well as helicopters with heavy ropes, pick up the UFO and bring it back to the States. The Pentagon believed that the UFO may likely have some incredible technology that would put the United States thousands of years or more ahead of the Soviets as well as the rest of the world. We were told that we were never to speak of this to anyone, unless you wanted to die in a suicide. After several hours out at sea, the captain decided to go to a lower depth since we were within the radius where the UFO was supposed to be. 200 feet, 300 feet, 400 feet, 500 feet, and lower and lower. We were eventually so deep underwater that we could no longer see anything out of the portals. We were at a point where we were just above the bottom of the ocean. Then, we began scanning. I was assigned to a radar station like many others. We were told to report anything that we found. There were other people scanning for energy signatures, movement, and so on. We traveled through the water for about an hour, and then I noticed something on the radar. I told the captain that it might be the UFO, but it didn't have any energy signature. When we approached it, it turned out not to be the UFO. It was a whale. It had been completely ripped apart. We put the lights on outside the vessel to get a better look at it. The whale was blackened and shredded, and there were parts of it where you could see inside of its body, revealing organs and bones. It had long shred marks crisscrossing themselves all over its body. Someone suggested that it might have been a whaler, but that idea was debunked immediately. Whalers aren't sadists, they're capitalists. We decided to continue on with our mission, but I was quite unnerved by this point. When we continued searching the ocean floor for about an hour, I was honestly starting to get a little drowsy from pure boredom. And then, a weird thing happened. The submarine started to vibrate. The walls, the floors, the monitors starting vibrating gently while making a faint humming sound. Nothing new appeared on any of the monitors. And then it just stopped. with no explanation as to where it came from or where it went. And just as before, we continued on with the mission. All of a sudden, something new appeared on the radar. It was huge and shaped like a large rectangle. I reported it to the captain, and he had us navigate towards the object. The monitor showed that the object had a low energy signature, but a signature nonetheless. We continued to approach the object, and this is when things started to get complicated. Another submarine showed up, a Soviet submarine. The captain put the ship on alert. He called for all officers to head to the command deck. They began to heatedly discuss the next move. It was clear at this point that the Soviets were also trying to locate the UFO, and probably for the same reasons. We could not allow them to take the UFO, for if they did, the USA would never be able to compete with them. The captain first sent a message to the aircraft carrier to hurry their asses up, and that we may have found it. He informed them that the Soviets were here, so they had to be here as soon as possible. And then, he attempted to make contact with the Soviet submarine. They accepted the contact, and a man with a heavy Russian accent came on the phone. Everybody could hear him on the command deck. "This is the captain of Submarine Adams. Who am I speaking with?" asked the captain.
"Hello, Captain. I am the commander of the submarine Molotov. May I ask what you're doing in these waters?"
asked the Soviet commander. "I could ask you the same question, Commander," said the captain.
"We're on a top-secret mission on behalf of the Soviet High Command. However, I have a sneaking suspicion that we are both here for the same reason."
"Listen, Commander. I have no wish for this encounter to turn ugly, but I have every intention of seeing my orders through, whatever that entails."
"Understood, Captain. I shall do likewise."
He cut the message off after that. The captain and his officers realized that we only had a few options. We could wait and hope to God that the aircraft carrier got here in time, or we could fire on the Soviet submarine, which, if Moscow ever found out about it, well, all bets are off at that point. But nuclear war would be a most likely consequence. The Soviets were probably running the same thought process that we were. Either wait it out, or fire the torpedoes. We decided to just wait it out and first get a better look at the UFO. We approached the site, and the Soviets were not far behind us. We finally got a better look at what we were dealing with. It was a long, box-shaped ship with 2 propulsion units on the back. It also had 3 giant rings circling the ship that were connected to the ship by several pillars. It had a few spots with flashing blue lights, but the strangest thing about the ship was in the part of the ship that had collided with the ground. There were thousands upon thousands of tiny green lights that were moving around on it. They were swimming around it, almost like ants. They produced enough light to really illuminate everything around them. We eventually managed to put 2 and 2 together. They were repairing the ship. Already, we knew there was technology on that ship that would dramatically change warfare. Imagine a battleship that could repair itself after every single attack, and quickly. That was too good for the government to pass up. We eventually did get a call from the aircraft carrier, but now we had a problem. The Soviet aircraft carrier and 2 of their battleships had shown up at the same time. They were in direct confrontation with our aircraft carrier and our 2 battleships. We were now on a stalemate that could only end one way. Neither side was willing to share the spacecraft, and neither side was willing to leave without it. I braced myself. We may be about to start a nuclear war over an alien spacecraft. Either we were going to shoot first, or the Soviets would. the captain ordered us to have the torpedoes on standby. But no side fired the torpedoes, because the spacecraft started to change all of a sudden. The energy coming from the spacecraft started to increase. The little glowing green lights left from the front of the ship, then stationed themselves in front of us and the Soviets. The energy started to rise even more. The actual freaking water temperature started to increase. There was a loud humming sound coming from outside the vessel that got louder and louder. The entire submarine started to vibrate. And then, suddenly, the power shut off. All the lights and monitors and everything killed out of nowhere. Usually now, the backup generator would turn on, but that didn't happen, which meant that it was out of commission as well. With no power, the submarine started tilting. I mean, everybody on the command deck was thrown against the wall as the sub floated down and settled on the ocean floor. The entire sub was now almost sideways, so anything that wasn't nailed down had been thrown to the wall. I was in pitch black darkness. I couldn't even see my hand. The captain asked if anybody had been injured. One guy had been pushed under a box, but everybody else was mostly okay. Someone eventually found some flashlights, and we passed them around to people. I thankfully managed to get one. We decided to search the rest of the vessel to make sure that everybody was alright, because it's not like we were going anywhere for a while. It was very difficult to navigate the ship from a different angle. We had to climb to get through the doors, since there was a wall in between the door, and a lot of the already tight hallways meant that we now had to crawl through them. I worked my way through the ship with a few other guys. I hope to God there is only electrical damage instead of structural damage, because if this thing leaked, it would very quickly become a coffin for 124 people. We navigated through the submarine, passing pipes and stepping on monitors that had been mounted to the walls. I eventually noticed another light. It was the faint green glow. It was one of those orbs. I saw it approach a different seaman, who was looking at it with curiosity. And then, it attached itself to his head, and his entire body was ripped apart. He was struggling to get it off of him, but he was dead within a few seconds. I ran down the hallway, but I could hear it chasing after me. The other men followed me, but I could hear as he grabbed one. The man screamed in agony and begged for help, but there is nothing that we could do. I found a small box that had been thrown against the wall, and I hopped inside of it. I hoped that this would be enough to hide me from them. I waited in that box, and all was quiet. And then I heard it pass me by. A faint humming sound emanated from it. It stopped, and it waited there. I held my breath, and then it continued down the hallway. I stayed in that box for another hour. I was terrified that the sub was going to fill up with water. After all, those things had found a way into the sub. They must have had an entrance. I could still hear faint humming noises throughout the ship, and occasionally I would hear somebody screaming, crying in horrible pain, before they went silent. And then, the sub started to vibrate again. I got out of the box and I ran to one of the portals. I had to look up to see through it. The UFO rose up off of the ocean floor, and it hesitated for a few moments. It gave off a loud humming sound, and then at a speed that was difficult to comprehend, it shot upwards to the top of the ocean. I passed the rest of the ship, since everything was safe now. In total, about 24 people have been killed by those things. We had to stay in the sub for another day before we were eventually rescued. Somehow, those things had gone into the sub without using an entrance, because it had never filled with any water. We were not the only ones to lose power. The Soviet submarine did as well, as did the boats above water. Which may be why it took so long for us to get help after the mission. We were once again told to never tell anybody about what happened out there. And the official story was that those crewmen died during a fire on the submarine. The Soviets, I'm assuming, also made their men to never speak of it again. The only person that I've ever told this story to was my wife. But now, I felt that I had to share it with the world. We were messing with something that we did not understand. So, we paid the price.